The pen dragged across the paper with a weight that felt more like a verdict than a formality. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask questions. I simply slid the paperwork back across the table and met her eyes just once. That was all I needed. Then I stood the scrape of the chair loud in the silence. She smiled. Not a kind smile. Tight, twisted, cruel. A flicker of triumph that seared itself into my mind deeper than any goodbye. When I stepped out and shut the door behind me, I didn't just leave a house. I walked away from the image of the man she believed could be discarded without cost. The truck engine rumbled to life beneath me. As I drove away, she stood on the porch, arms folded, laughing, a sharp, brittle sound like glass breaking in the cold. I drove until the streets blurred, until familiar faded into something unrecognizable in the rearview mirror. I never turned back. 5 years. That's how long I juggled 2 jobs, worked weekends, took every shift I could just so she could chase a dream I once shared with her. Nursing, school, clinicals, exams. I was the one brewing coffee at midnight, holding her while she wept, telling her she was capable when she doubted everything. But in the end, I was only a rung on the ladder. And once she reached the top, she didn't hesitate to knock it over. I vanished, changed my name, cashed out everything, and handed her the keys to a home I had poured my soul into. The day the last deposit cleared, I erased myself. Years passed. I kept to myself, rebuilt from scratch in a quiet town where no one knew what I had lost. I grew stronger body and mind. I studied, worked, evolved. I stayed in the shadows and watched her shine online. The cars, the vacations, the shallow smiles and designer lives. A new man on her arm in just 6 months. I said nothing. I waited. Then 10 years later, the silence broke. A known number. Straight to voicemail. Again, then again. When I finally mute the phone, it had 169 missed calls. I knew the sound of desperation without pressing play. Panic, regret, fear. Somehow she had found me. That night, I sat by the window with a glass of whiskey and watched the stars disappear behind clouds. I thought about calling her back. I didn't. Not yet. This wasn't going to be emotional. It would be clean, precise. The next morning, I opened my laptop and started tracing her life thread by thread. It was easier than I expected. Her new husband, a mortgage broker with questionable ethics. Their house, a grand facade they couldn't afford. Her job, a reputable hospital backed by donors she kept far too close. I took my time. 6 months quiet tips to the IRS about a shady deal. Anonymous messages to her hospital board about her too personal ties to certain pharmaceutical reps. A private investigator for the late-night meetings that didn't end in offices. Every move planned, every domino lined up. Then I acted. The hospital launched an inquiry. The IRS locked their accounts. Her husband's firm cut him loose. Everything began to fall apart. Not in fire, but in silence. A slow unraveling. Late payments whisper rumors. Invitations never extended. And I watched until she called again. This time I answered. At first, only silence, then a breath. Her voice cracked and quiet. Please, I just need to talk to you. I leaned back, eyes on the skyline. Talk. I made a mistake, she said, voice breaking. I see that now. I was blind. I didn't know what I had. I didn't know until it was gone. I let the silence stretch until it hurt. I miss you, she whispered. God, I miss you. Please just let me see you. Please. I pictured her there in the wreckage of her carefully curated life, surrounded by the ashes of every choice she'd made. My voice was low, cold. You don't miss me, I said. You missed a man who would have carried you through this. He's gone. You killed him. Her sob cracked through the speaker, raw and jagged. But it didn't reach me. Couldn't. I hung up. There was no redemption, no revival, no do-over. I stood at the window as the city light shimmered to blur of unshed tears and felt only stillness. Cold final peace. She called again and again. I never answered. I let her drown in the silence. She once left me in. Behind me, her world turned to ash. I watched from the other side of the fire, untouched and finally free.